My name's Gus Davis and I live in Rancho Bernardo. RB's a nice place to live. It's pretty, it's peaceful and quiet, and it's safe. Or so we thought. My house didn't burn down during the Witch Creek fire, but many nearby did. While evacuated, I got to watch houses burning for 3 days on TV. One thing that struck me time and again, I would see houses burning from the inside out, with trees and bushes all around them totally intact. One especially scary scene showed a grassy field on fire with 40-50 mile-an-hour winds generating a giant cloud of sparks. It was a field very much like this one. These embers then took off in a stream 10 or 20 feet thick. It was probably such an ember stream that just nicked this tree and then went right up the street and selectively burned these palm trees here. Here these homes, surrounding trees are intact, but look at the palm trees. Up above the roof line, they're all burned, yet at the top, they're okay. Now, what do we have right opposite? The house. Got it. Well, here we have the burned down house, burned palm trees in the background, up at a higher elevation, but nobody else got burned. Maybe because the house next door doesn't have any attic vents on this side. This prompted me to take a look at my own attic vents. Every house seems to have a couple of these. This is all that's between my attic and a whole bunch of sparks and embers. Here's some literature I picked up at Home Depot handed out by volunteers right after the fire. How to protect your home from wildfire. Something from Firewise Construction, and it says various things, construction materials. Prevent sparks from entering your home through the vents. Cover attic vents with wire mesh no larger than 1/8 inch. Aha. Wildfire hazard assessment checklist. Check that vents are covered with 1/8 inch screen. From FEMA. Well, louvered opening wire screen material that has 1/4 inch or smaller opening. I'm going online here to see what expert information may be available on screening of attic vents. Here's a report I found. I printed it off because it's very interesting. It's attic and crawl space ventilation, implication, blah blah, urban wildlife interface by one Stephen Quarles, PhD, UC Berkeley, and Tim Wolde, research physicist, USDA Forest Service, Forest Products Laboratory. Okay, here it shows, you probably can't see much of it, I can't really, but a non-combustible exterior cladding and roof covering plus dual pane windows were not enough to save this structure. Ember entry into vents are a probable cause of the initial ignition of the structure. Okay, so then they go into vents. Vents can result in structure loss by entry, ember, or flame. Building codes call for 1/4 inch or 1/8 inch mesh screening, although California building code stipulates 1/4 inch mesh. Anecdotal evidence from structure loss surveys after recent California wildfires indicates that the use of 1/4 inch mesh screens in vents has not been effective in eliminating entry of burning embers. But because of concern over moisture-related performance problem, building code officials are cautious about allowing 1/8 inch or less mesh screens. I wonder who those building code officials are. Now here's an interesting report I printed off about the use of a firebrand generator to investigate ignition of structures in wildland urban interface fires. And this is by something called the Building and Fire Research Laboratory of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, together with the Department of Fire Engineering of the Building Research Institute. Wow. Very long, elaborate thing. It goes into how they built their thingamabob to throw some embers downstream in a wind tunnel kind of an arrangement. And then we come to an interesting section here where they actually test the thing. They test 3 different sizes of screen. Say here, it is important to point out that for the 6mm screen tested, that's the 1/4 inch, a majority of the firebrand simply flew through the screen, resulting in an ignition of the paper behind the screen far more quickly as compared to the smaller screens. I think that's telling you that 1/4 inch screening is not adequate. 1/4 inch mesh cannot stop embers and flames during wildfires. This is an example of conflict in code preferences between building and fire officials. Here's another thing from a fire engineering magazine. Research shows that although homes are destroyed by the passing fire front, the majority is caused by fire embers well before or after the front of the fire. Once the embers enter through vents, the structure basically burns from the inside out. We see that all the time. Conventional vent designs offer little to no defense against an approaching wildfire. Okay, here's the code that's offered, the new code change that says roof and attic vents shall resist, not prevent, resist the intrusion of flame and embers into the attic area, or shall be protected by corrosion-resistant, non-combustible wire mesh with 1/4 inch openings. Same old, same old. Evidently, it's the position of these mold preventers that, rather than run some unspecified risk of getting some mold in our attics, it's better our houses should burn down. I ran across what was evidently a proposed building code change for City of San Diego for vent screening, in which it was written no larger than 1/4 inch mesh shall be used, and no larger than was crossed out. Well, I've spent a lot of time looking up various engineering reports, studies, things sponsored by University of California, the Institute of this and that by professors of whatever, and PhDs, you name it. And one thing comes out very clear and consistent. That is, California is about the only place in the world that does not require at least 1/8 inch mesh for their attic vent screening, plus in general much more. Why this is? Well, always in the background is that there is some group who is against it. Some builders group or whatever that's very concerned about mold. But in the same report you'll see that the attic venting that California has is just wide open to ember intrusion, and many of them go so far as to make the flat-out statement that intrusion of embers into the attic and setting on fire is the primary cause of building loss in Southern California, and it's the greatest hazard that any building can have next to a shake roof.